Today we have something special for you. We have a presentation, an interview, and some concert footage of Antonia Daskalova. Please stick around, it's going to be fun and exciting. Hi, this is Ted with Alamo Music Center in beautiful downtown San Antonio, Texas. And today I am sitting here having a visit interview with Antonia Daskalova, phenomenal classical pianist. She's giving a concert here tomorrow night. We're going to have little snippets as well as this interview. So, first questions first. How are you feeling? You look wonderful. We're glad to have you here.
Well, thank you. I feel great. Happy to be here.
Good. The other thing I wanted to mention is Antonia is a Kawai medallion teacher, and she's also a Kawai artist. And it's both of those things that we wanted to kind of talk a little bit about. But before we get into that, I want to kind of back up a little bit and have you talk a little bit about yourself. And this is great to interview because I've seen you, we've chatted over the last couple of years, but not anything serious. And this is what's really exciting for me to interview is that I know a bit about you, but I don't know enough to sit out and guide, so it's going to almost be like, oh, we should have a cup of coffee and some Danishes here or something. But anyway, tell me about your introduction to the piano, and did you immediately start taking lessons, or was it a gradual thing? So tell me some history of you with the piano.
I have a weird story to tell.
I like it already.
And nothing typical, nothing like, my parents took me for lessons or any of this. No, I had a neighbor, 5th floor. We used to live in the 6th floor. Military setup. My father was in the military. I hear the piano, I don't know what that is. I like the sound, I didn't like the music. So I start digging. And I talked to my parents. I hear the songs, but I don't think they're played well. Of course, I got butchered. And eventually, a couple of months later, my neighbor admitted that she has a piano and she doesn't like taking lessons. She was older, much older than me, by 6 years probably. And I was like, okay, can I try it? She was like, only if you let me play with your hair. And I said, okay.
That's an even exchange.
So, yeah. I go and I learn by ear every song that I know. I was 3.5.
And you picked them out?
Every single one. And the hard part was to convince my parents that I can play the piano because nobody believed me at home. And it took months and months, for me to take them downstairs. And of course, when I did what I did, they literally almost had a heart attack because they sit down and no sound, no picture on the faces. And I was like, okay, now I want the piano. And the roller coaster started from there because nobody takes that young of a student. And we were in a very small provincial town back in Bulgaria. Very hard to find a professional teacher, although we had a beautiful professional music school. Imagine like Juilliard here, but 6 of those in the whole entire country, and they literally select the best of the best.
Pick and choose.
Very, very picky. And it's also government sponsored, which makes it free and very competitive. So I remember the first 2 teachers completely refused to look at me. The 3rd one I had to have a fit with, so I wouldn't leave and make a scene and scream and yell. So she let me touch the piano when my mom took me because I was pissed off. And after that, she was speechless too. And she said, I can't teach her. And that was the 4th time that I hear this, and I'm like, why not? Just like that, I was 4. And she was like, I'll send you to my teacher. So I relaxed. And it was an old lady who was retired from that music school. And in 2 months, she taught me how to play with both hands. We started serious stuff, and 5 years old, I was accepted first with the highest score at the musical school, and from there it just went and on and on.
So you were always on piano. So you kind of had to struggle for your initiation into the world of piano, right?
Yeah, yeah,
So
that's how it worked.
How was your first recital? When did that happen? And how did that set with you? Were you happy and thrilled at your first recital? Did you get a case of the nerves any? Or?
I was forced to do it.
So you had a
want
case
it.
of the nerves, or you just refused
No,
to feel anything for it, just went out there and did it?
It just, I don't like scheduled things. You know, something like somebody tells me you should do this, and I'm it's just not me. And when my piano teacher, who's phenomenal, I was 14, and she said, you need to do a piano recital. And I said, only if I like the music. And yeah, I wasn't an easy student, although, yeah.
Did you get to pick your pieces for your first recital? Did your teacher let you pick one and then give
Yes
you one
and
that you
no.
didn't want to play? Because a lot of kids get, students, I think not kids, but students get, you're going to play this in a recital.
Remember, I was in a professional music school.
Yeah, so that's
It's
probably what that happened
very
to you.
different.
Yeah.
They have different curriculum, different expectations. Competitions also were a big part of my training. And that's why I have a huge dislike toward anything that is like, you pick from this and you can't do anything else.
It's almost like it's regimented discipline to the point of control.
Yes.
And it takes away a lot of the joy.
If you can't play this, you shouldn't be taking the competition.
Yeah, that crushes the spirit of a lot of
Exactly.
people too. You know, and then I'm not sure that's really the spirit of music.
No,
but
it's
then
not.
again, you know, classical music is different than, you know, gypsy music or klezmer music or music of the
What is classical
cultural
music
type.
to you? Because we probably have a different definitions.
Classical music to me is, number one, it's written down.
Okay.
And I'm not saying that it all has to be, in this day and age, things are different, you can record. But way back when music was first starting to get a library of, these are songs that I made for a whole orchestra. And then piece by piece, you start getting concertos and they start segregating in symphonies and all these different titles. Just the organization of music alone is classical in its structure because we've done it for hundreds of years. Some of these pieces are folk tunes or simple melodies, go back even, you know, longer than that. To me, classical music is what is taught as an education to be a foundation of these are what are considered some of the better master composers of humankind. I'm not always in agreement with these guys, but the idea is that for hundreds of years, people have played and studied and enjoyed this music. And my only complaint about classical music is where's the new classical music coming from? And how come everyone has to play 20 of Beethoven's, 20 of Mozart's, all these Liszt and Chopin pieces till they say, yeah, he's pretty good on piano. Those guys never had to learn one another's music. Some of them did, but it's not like they were in a hurry to learn this guy's piece because they had their own piece. And no one really said that that's an authorized piece of classical music there. But time is what brings that authorization, I guess, and puts it into classical music. It is hard to define,
Yeah.
but it is some of the pillars that build up the art form, particularly of piano. And I'd say classical music, I'm not saying anything that happened before the piano isn't classical, because it certainly is, but it really got highly structured and formalized when the piano got focused, just a little bit over 200 years ago. It really started to tighten up a lot.
Baroque is not classical. Romantic is not classical. Contemporary is not classical.
But they're taught at classical schools, and that's where the players
Yes,
for
they
that
are.
music have to go through to get their education. And so, yeah, it's not classical music. That was music for the masses, for people to.
But there's
and
nothing wrong with something being
Absolutely
taught
not.
in school.
I think it's
trust
the
me,
instruments that make it classical. You have to learn to play an instrument.
I think that's the history of the piano or the history of the instrument. Without this, you know, the way they say a person without a past has no future.
Right.
if you don't know what Bach was composing for and performing on, you wouldn't be able to really capture the spirit of the music, or why is it written like this. If you don't know why Mozart was so airy and so over the top, heavenly, clear, with his phrasings, you don't know anything about classicism.
Right.
And those are the things that make a musician colorful. I'm not saying you have to follow it by the dot, but if you don't know what you're doing, you better not be playing that piece.
Well, it's kind of interesting because in classical music and in studies, particularly in piano, there's always, Bach.
Yes.
And he never really played a piano.
Correct.
But all his music is on piano. And I often wonder,
do you know why,
he
though?
has written that music, if he had access to piano, would he make himself work that hard on that instrument? Some of those pieces are hard to play on piano. They're exhausting because the action on a piano is a lot heavier and requires a lot more strength than a harpsichord.
That's not what's difficult about Bach's music on piano. What's difficult is to interface the voicings that are equally important. For example, in any of the fugues, he goes from 3 to 4 to 5 voices. And it's not your typical melody accompaniment situation.
No.
It starts in the middle of the phrase, another one goes, and it doesn't matter, you have 10 fingers and 88 keys or whatever diapason he's using, and you have to show this.
Well, yeah, and then of course there's the requirement for Bach is the independence of every finger, which is where I couldn't get the fourth fingers on both hands to think independently, especially the left hand, and just do its own jackhammering on anything. But Bach students and Bach players, I give it to them. It's phenomenal. It's fun to watch them play. It's fun to listen to. The piece that you pulled is almost go, and it doesn't really change tempo in the left hand. It's a solid piece, and that's you got to come up. You never come up for air on that one.
Since I was 4th grade, twice a year I was required to play at least one Bach Little Prelude and Fugue, then Inventions, then Bach Prelude and Fugues, and on and on and on.
Okay, so then let me ask you a question. Part of you being a medallion teacher, you push that onto your students in this day and age, the same strictness that you had? Because you're certainly in a different country, and I know that there's a lack of discipline when it comes over here in this country.
No.
Not from the students, but I mean...
No. We're not going to go there. No. Here's the thing. Discipline comes with desire.
Built in.
You either care or you don't. Discipline is not something that is forced. If we get to this point, we better part.
Just a better part.
Yeah, we better go different
That was the
ways.
next thing I was going to ask is, have you had students just kind of drop out because they can't give X number of hours a week?
Sorry, many.
I know I had a teacher that wanted at a minimum 20 hours a week out of his students, which if you think about it, that's not
They didn't drop because of this.
Much.
I never control how much they're going to practice. But what I control is the quality of practice.
Well, yeah.
The quality of practice is the most important thing. And I always tell them, you might sit on the piano 15 minutes today, but if you're sitting and, picking your nose or counting, the birds outside, this is not called practice. Sorry.
That's checking off a box for time requirement.
Literally.
Yeah.
And I remember a conversation with my piano teacher. I was 15, probably at the time. She was like, look, everybody practice about 4 hours a day. And I'm like, uh-huh. She was like, how much do you practice? And I'm like, do you really want to know? She was like, I have to know. I'm like, 2.5 hours at the most? She's like, you have to do 4. And I'm like, I'm not.
But it's the precision of the focus.
No, It's
I mean,
not that. Exactly.
It's what you do from that time.
The time is not
No.
what makes
No.
the practice successful.
The effectiveness of how the time is spent.
I'm like, I have 2.5 hours. I want to live, I want to have friends, and I want to be the best. You make it happen for me. And she did.
So you knew at an early age, you knew pretty early on that piano was going to be it for you. That was your career kind of thing.
I never thought of anything else, although my father at some point after I graduated, 12th grade with the highest score, literally the highest score, and he was like, okay, now you can be a lawyer, you can be this, you can be that, and I'm like, uh-huh. He was like, so what is it gonna be? And I'm like, I already applied for the academy. He was like, okay, what else? And I'm like, nothing.
So I wanted to ask a question. What kind of movies do you like? Because I always like to ask people about
The weird ones.
film scores. I love film scores in movies because I actually think that whatever classical music is by definition, I think that the current classical music of our time is film scores and the background music to a lot of films. I'm not saying every film score is classical music, but a lot of them in this time frame of, like, say, the 20th century classical music is going to be a lot of film
Give me an
scores in
example.
Hollywood. Any of the John Williams kind of music, some of the music that comes from Ennio Morricone.
Sorry,
The,
I'll tell you something. I never seen Star Wars.
you've never seen the Star Wars? What movies have you seen that, for example, have a film score that you remember?
Troy,
Troy?
but do you know why? I remember it.
I want to guess Brad Pitt was in it, but tell me
Because
something
they
different.
stole a Bulgarian folk song
Oh, okay.
and turned it into a soundtrack.
Got you. Which,
Gladiator, I love it. The music, I had it for years on a CD, obviously, long time ago.
was that Hans Zimmer that did Gladiator?
That
I'd
other
have to
guy,
check that
no.
one.
No, the Gladiator is, you have to see it.
I just don't remember the
That
soundtrack.
music is phenomenal. Yes, Ennio Morricone, absolutely, he's a classic in this. But it's not Hollywood production anymore. Morricone is.
Well, no, he was
Yeah.
kind of an international film composer,
Exactly.
and John Barry was as well too. He wasn't really, although he was used in
Don't
Hollywood.
know that person.
John Barry. Born Free was one of his first big ones in the '60s. He also did the James Bond theme
You're talking
for a
about
few years.
things that I haven't been born yet.
Out of Africa.
Nope.
A lot of the older films have some
But you said
classical type.
nowadays.
Nowadays.
How about Lord of the Rings?
I haven't watched them. I watched them one time through. I liked the soundtrack, but I don't remember the stories. I enjoyed, The
What
Hobbit.
do you think about the music?
I thought the music was fat and full. I mean, it was full orchestration and everything.
love
That's
it.
like classical. That's like a classical score where they
Yes.
use every part of the instrumentation. Timpanis, glocken. They use everything.
It's gorgeous.
And a lot of the major big production scores are like that now, a lot of them. And even video games went from having computer music in the early 80s as doot, 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 doot. Now they have these massive scores that scare you and bring you into a whole different world.
Music goes hand to hand with the other arts.
Oh,
They're
yeah.
interconnected. You can't just do music and think it's enough.
Well, it's one of the things that it's
Yeah.
like decoration. It's like, flowers at a celebration. It's decoration, a way to paint the air, so to speak, so that everyone's hearing the same thing. I had asked this before. I don't know if it was just as we were chatting, but you don't do routine exercises. You don't sit down and do 1 through 40 of the Hanon. You don't do practice your arpeggios.
Although I had them memorized.
Well, hey,
That was by force. Sorry.
You seem to make the best of a lot of unfortunate situations in your practicing. It's like you realize that people really
I have
forced a lot
stories.
onto you.
Oh, yeah.
Wonderful. And I do want to ask you about the a couple songs that you have on here, and this was one question someone asked me right up front. Make sure I ask this. How do you say this? This is on your program, and we can get a B-roll film it. How do you say this?
I know it. Devojko Marihubova.
Devojka
Marihubova.
Marihubova. I tried that before, and it's like...
And you did better.
And I did better. I really did, because it's kind of nervous being on camera. But and it essentially means beautiful girl, but not just any beautiful girl. It's
No.
a beautiful girl that is of the right age to be married, but is unmarried.
Correct.
And makes her more
And
beautiful because she's probably...
It also includes the fact that she's at age for marriage and she's looking for suitors. I mean, officially, there is a way traditionally in Bulgaria, a long time ago. Nowadays, everybody does whatever.
They do whatever. But let me
Yeah.
ask you, at what age is that in Bulgaria?
Like everybody else within an old culture, 14.
Quinceañeras
the
or 15,
latest,
around 14,
15, yeah.
15. Wonderful. I'm just checking to make sure it's
same with
running.
boys.
Okay. And the other thing I wanted, of everything that's on your program, I kind of went through and gave a pre-listen to. And this is the one thing I do wanted to mention is that I'm really excited about your concert, and only because, for this reason, every piece that is on here is a piece of music that is just absolutely a beautiful piece of music.
Right.
And it's a collection of things that I think for people that love music and love piano, whether they play or not, it's like, if I could play piano, those are the kind of songs, that's what I would play. That song makes you want to learn how to play the piano just so you can play that song. There's a couple of those pieces that are in here. And I find that fascinating because so much of all the piano literature that's available in the world is almost parts of it intolerable to listen to. It makes you dislike piano. Certainly, here's a new piano composer, and it's like, I heard enough. It sounds like anger. So sometimes there's people that don't like piano, or it makes you hate piano, even though you may love the composer and a lot of his work. He's got passages or pieces you can't stand. This is a beautiful collection of songs. It should be a wonderful concert, and I'm looking forward to us having it recorded and filmed.
Thank you.
I do wanted to ask you about the guitar piece. I can't read the name of it here.
The Arabic Capriccio?
Yeah, the Capriccio
Arabi.
Arabe. That's I've heard that on guitar before.
Yes.
And
It's originally written for guitar.
when I first heard it, I think you were going through it the other day. It's like, there's a lot of arpeggios in there. Is that? Wait a minute. I know that piece. That's not a piano. I know it on guitar. So how did you? What led you to put that guitar piece onto a piano? There's a little journey in that
With all
involved somewhere.
honesty,
That's what I want to know.
with all honesty,
yes, you heard someone do it.
This is, no,
Oh,
this is the piece that my husband begged me to put on the program.
really?
It's for him, yes.
Wonderful. So I asked the right question.
I don't know why from 11 pieces you picked this one, but this is the truth.
Well, actually, I did tell you there were two pieces on your program that stood out. That was one of them because it was on guitar, and the other one was particular Beautiful Girl, because I could not find a whole lot of piano renditions
There
on that
isn't.
song. And
isn't,
it looks like it's groups of people singing it, or it's like a traditional thing that's probably sung at like a quinceañera type coming out party or something, I'm guessing. And so I thought, now that's kind of interesting to have that on piano as well, when it really only exists as a folk tune, which means you're talking about stringed instruments for the most part.
Correct. And voice.
And voice. Okay, so at this time, we're going to take a little bit of a break, and we're going to go to a demonstration of your concert footage. Wonderful concert recital footage there of Antonia Daskalova playing a Kawai SKEX piano here at Alamo Music Center. And we're going to continue the conversation here, but we're going to try to really enjoy this conversation with you. It's been interesting getting to listen to your ideas and find out your history of piano. What I want to talk about now is to get your is to focus a little bit more on the actual instruments that you use now, and maybe you can give a little brief history, what kind of pianos you've had before. I know that you have a GX2, I believe, someplace, a Kawai
Yes.
GX, and then you also have some Kawai digitals that you play. And I'd like for you, as a classical artist, this is real important for me, because I don't get a lot of truly classical teachers and classical artists that really even have their students or themselves playing on a digital piano. So this is insightful for me to ask your experience of digitals before we get around to talking about Kawai acoustics. But I really want to get your opinion and a lot of your experience with digital pianos.
I'll tell you exactly what happened without stating an opinion, and I think absolutely everybody who listens to this will get it. I had a Steinway, brand new, model O, production 2015, that moved with me from Minneapolis to San Antonio, Texas in 2018. For my solo concert in 2020, I wanted to make a recording. And I wanted it tuned the way I hear it best. Would you believe me that 4 tuners, including a Steinway's technician, couldn't satisfy me?
I could believe that.
That piano, I didn't record anything. I played the concert, it was mid-October sometime. 2 weeks later, it was on eBay, sold in 2 hours. And I came here, and I met Patrick, and I said, I need a digital Kawai. I chose one, and I went home happy.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Now, the other day, you showed me something on one of your fingers.
Yes. I found
A touch of a boo-boo on the side key of a digital, is what you had said.
here and here, but again, there is a difference between digital and digital. I have 2. The one that I used, I was careless when I picked it. I didn't realize that the roughness of the keys on the side is there. And by the time I realized that this was already sore, and here it was peeling. Not only that, the keys are smaller in size. They don't fit as comfortable as this one, the big ones, or any baby grand. Again, the hard way. I didn't know that the difference is that big in the size and the length of the key. The black keys or the white keys. On certain digital models, the keys are smaller and shorter, thinner. On certain digital higher end, of course, are almost same size as a baby grand.
Right.
This one is an exception. This one is with bigger keys, longer and bigger space in between.
Right.
So yeah, I wish I knew that before I started practicing. I could have picked the other one, but yeah,
Now we've already
I learned something.
Interesting. I was going to ask you, have you, how big is your reach on a piano? Because I
Barely a ninth.
barely a 9.
Barely.
But,
On the edges, all the way down, ninth.
okay. That's just a generic question I ask most pianists because I've had some that can reach an octave, some that can go over an octave.
Most of them go a tenth, which is octave plus 2.
Right. That's usually what I do.
Most of them. I have very different hands. I was taught to stretch when I was little because I played Clementi sonatinas by the time I was 6, and
Right.
small hand, this big. It doesn't work. So the problem with my hand is that this is too tall here, and it can't stretch on this side. Here it's a little bit better, but still, in comparison,
Right.
you see?
Now, are you left-handed or right-handed?
Right.
You're right-handed. I ask that a lot too because that makes it easier to play piano, believe it or not.
For a pianist, it doesn't matter. Equally developed.
I've had some left-handed pianists tell me they've always felt right-handed pianists have the advantage, only because the melody is
Sorry.
almost always there in the right hand.
If you're a good pianist, both of your hands
Well, you're
work
ambidextrous in one way or another, right?
I like excuses, sorry.
I wanted to ask you about the other song that stood out on your program, because there's something that it looks like it's a little certain special here, because you put a lyric sheet with it, in both in English and it looks like in your native Bulgarian. And is that part of, I know nothing about other than the song and the group that recorded it, but there's some kind of special meaning here with this song with you. And could you tell me what that is?
I honestly don't know. I just love it.
You just like it?
Love it.
Love it.
There is a difference.
No, I haven't heard this one
like-
at all. This is
Which
the
one?
The Winner Takes It All on your version, piano. I didn't.
But do you know the song?
I know the song,
Okay.
but I'm.
Do you know
Hey,
the
that's going to be.
lyrics?
I know the lyrics. They're right here in front of me. But no, I just know
okay.
it from the radio when it was a hit. Okay, I'm not up to par on this 100%. I'm looking forward to this
See?
tomorrow night.
That's
see?
why everybody was like, why are you doing this? Why are you putting the lyrics? And I'm like, you know what? I played it for a couple of people and I asked them what are the lyrics, and they have no clue. I mean, when you read this,
Right.
how do you feel?
I haven't read through the whole
Oh,
thing. I
please
just
do.
know it. Right here on camera, you get an emotional reaction out of me here on camera. I know that there's parts of it that were kind of sad from what I remember.
Kind of?
When hey, it's been, this was on the radio in the 70s, am I right? 70s or 80s? Yes? Okay. It wasn't that hard. I just asking for a yes.
You wonder why? Well, read the words.
Yeah, it's pretty cold when it
honest.
falls apart here, isn't it? Mm-hmm. This is like the downside of divorce. But none of the legal stuff. It's just all emotional stuff here.
All
There's
personal,
none of the
extremely
financial
personal.
and legal stuff of divorce here, the stuff that drives you nuts. This is all the personal.
Only in
This is what
America.
keeps you awake at night. Yeah, no, these are really kind of some sad things, but the idea is true. Like, they never
forget
really
it.
say who wins here.
Nobody wins. That's the thing.
But the winner gets it all. Right?
But
Takes
who's the
it all.
winner in that?
Apparently
When
no
you
one is, right?
you win, you lost already.
The whole idea, absolutely. I agree. So this is interesting, and it's just interesting that you have the lyrics there, because I thought there would be some kind of. Did ABBA record this in other languages or just in
No.
English? I know nothing about them other than
They're
whatever was played on the radio.
They're Norwegian, pretty famous in Europe in the 80s. And yes, she went through a divorce with the pianist, the soloist. Agneta
Okay.
was married to the pianist.
Okay.
They went through a divorce. 18 months later, he wrote the song. He did. Although he's the one who did the wrong thing.
I got you.
They, and
They got back together and make some more money selling that song.
no, they never dissolved the group. They became,
Right.
just musicians who work really good together. But that's not the reason I picked that song. That song, in my opinion, touches everything deeply without sugarcoating, and it says it as it is. Nothing is in your hands, nothing is in your control. You
True.
think, you imagine, and then with a roll of a dice, somewhere under whatever circumstances, you either win it all or lose it all.
Well, someone had asked me, that's true though, someone had asked me the other day what my favorite ABBA song was, and without thinking, I said, Dancing Queen. It starts on the piano. It's got all those cool, catchy piano parts.
Yes.
That to me, that was their I thought it was one of their catchiest one, if not
It's
their.
phenomenal. Yeah.
It just starts off, and that piano is even famous now. I saw there was an article going around about that piano, as someone had listed it for sale or something, and the piano itself can be heard at the beginning of Dancing Queen, and anyway, it was kind of interesting.
Fantastic, absolutely
So,
fantastic song.
tell me about your GX2, your acoustic Kawai piano that you have. And where is that?
It's in my studio.
It's in your studio?
Where I work, and I have a piano studio at Maxa here in San Antonio. I'm extremely thankful to have this beautiful instrument because my students have the opportunity to learn and the privilege to play on an instrument that can respond toward phrasing, color of sound, speed, you name it, style. The instrument is beautiful, and I always tell them, you better appreciate it. And when you're here, no, I mean it. I mean
Right.
it. It's a privilege. Can't take it for granted. Money or no money, it's a privilege. A lot of people have money and won't buy it for their kids. And a lot of people don't have money and they will invest.
Absolutely. There's no set formula on that at all.
Exactly.
I wanted to ask you, how do you find the action on your GX2 as compared when you come in and play on the SK pianos? Or is there, I mean, I know the SKs are more, tell me your thoughts on that.
I had to get used to this. There is a delay. There is an articulation, delay in sound, in ring. It's big. The shorter, the smaller baby grands are so much easier to play. Although the keys are not heavy, the keyboard is not difficult, the sound that comes out challenges you. What kind of articulation to use, when and how, because it's big.
Right, right. Now, let me ask you about, the other thing I wanted to ask you is the pedals. And I know I'm not so much talking about the sustain pedal, but the other pedal, the soft pedal on the left side. How often and how much do you use that?
I don't use it.
And you don't use it?
Unless
Okay,
it's specifically written by the composer, which is a very rare case, late Impressionism, Debussy, Ravel, you can find it.
Someone had asked me the other day, how do you know when to use the soft pedal?
Well, you need to know the mechanics of the piano, what the pedal does, and what you want from your music. If you don't know what the pedal does, you might like something that is just out and about weird. If everybody knows what the pedal is for, they think that it makes the sound softer or the pitch
Right.
softer. Total false. What it does is kills the vibe. Literally, of the string. It kills the vibe of the string because it literally closes it. Yes, we perceive it as softer sound, but it's not really softer. It just like you're playing a different instrument.
Right, right. Wonderful. I was going to ask you, how many students do you have?
I don't know. Everybody asks me this question,
they do?
and that's the thing. If I have to give you a number, let me calculate. Probably 20 something.
20 something? Now,
Yeah.
are they ranging like,
Yes.
like
I
almost
have a 4 years old and an adult.
That was my next question. I bet you take 3.5 and 4-year-olds,
do.
don't you? I kind of already knew that. I just wanted to ask to make sure.
I do,
And so you,
I'm absolutely not prejudiced toward those kids.
I
As long
can-
as they can sit there and listen to me for 20 minutes, or we have an agreement that we might dance during the piano lesson, but they have to do the work.
Right. Now, do you have any students that kind of watch a lot of videos and learn and listen and watch others plays? And do you let them or allow them, or do you like
I
that, or do
do.
you care or not?
I do let them, but I give them my opinion in advance, and I tell them if they have time to waste, go ahead, do it. You want to discuss something with me? You better choose a quality performance. Unfortunately, nowadays, everybody thinks
They're good.
they're good, or
put
they
their-
deserve attention, or a 1 minute whatever is important. So those are the things that I try to steer my students away from. If they ask me for a suggestion, sometimes I don't have a suggestion because they want Mario something and I refuse to learn this thing. Something about video game Mario. I grew up in a country where we didn't have video games and
Right.
stuff like this. So, but yeah, of course, it's important to listen. It's important to check. It's important to see, to educate yourself. But before you get into this, you have to have a system. You have to know what you're looking for, how to evaluate, and what's good and what's not.
Right. Oh, you
So
don't.
this is my job
No, right. Right.
to do with them, for them, before I let them run wild.
Because there's some classical teachers that just, they will deliberately find a piece of music to give to a student that they know they won't be able to find it. No one's going to play this on a video.
Oh, that's
this
one.
is I mean, they
Those are
really
the
want them to
tricks
learn
of-
it off of the page instead of by hearing it and seeing someone
See,
else
you
do
know,
it.
I judge competitions, right?
Right.
Those are the teachers that I kind of read before I read the student. And that's the thing. We all have weaknesses. Nobody's perfect. But when you project your weaknesses on your students, that's disgraceful.
Right, there you go. Yeah, that's something
Yeah.
that may not be aware they're doing it. Sometimes when they are, they
I
care
don't know.
less.
I don't know. But I don't know. I'm not judging anybody.
Right.
Everybody goes by their own moral code and they get what they deserve, hopefully. I
Absolutely.
think this is how I think about this. But when it comes to this, you know, like for example, you know, your student is playing hardcore study that is, you know, just flawless. And all of a sudden, it's category beginner in a competition. How do I take this?
Yeah, they kind of knock them down a couple notches there.
It's all about morals. In the
Yeah.
end.
Yeah, see, that's the one thing that when it came to how people treat one another at competitions and how they rank pieces, and like you said, I mean, you judge competitions, and I tried to get out of it. I never went to any of them because
Here-
that was just something that I did not want to be part of that world. That was just me.
Here's exactly.
Even as a student.
I heard somebody recently saying, you know, that not always the best student wins. I mean, I can't take that.
Yeah.
The best student must
Sometimes,
win.
yeah, but how do you define best? I may be a judge
Thank
that, you know
you.
what? I like this guy went out there. He was flashy.
Let's
He
sit
only
down.
made a couple minor mistakes, but man, he looked like he was in charge of what he was doing. And I think
Let's
he's the
sit
winner.
down. Let's discuss this. What are the
Everyone's got a
criterias?
difference of
Let's knock them out. You know, this and that, plus and minus, 1, 2, 3. But just because you liked it a little bit more, you know, it doesn't work.
But it's that human edge, and you know that human
The human
element when it
factor,
comes in.
exactly,
Yeah,
which I had to fight all my life because I come from Bulgaria. I don't come from Russia.
right.
I wasn't blonde enough at that time or white enough. When I
understand.
went to Germany for my first competition, they gave me 7 days visa when the competition was 11 days. So when I looked at the passport and, you know, the visa in the passport, and I'm like, but it's for 7 days. And she was like, yeah. And I'm like, but the competition is from this date to that date. It's 11. You know what she asked me? She's like, what do you think? You're going to win? And I looked at her and I'm like, what if I do?
You cut me out 4 days, man.
Literally, what if I do? Which happened.
Wow. That's something. See, that's the kind of stuff that I don't like, these sociological things when people start playing these mind games and stuff like that, just to try to.
There is a lot of this in my world.
Well, you know, that happens. I mentioned that a couple of times in videos with the world of piano etiquette in reading Jane Austen novels and how they would use
You
that.
hit a spot.
My student plays better than your student, so I'm a better teacher than you. And this kind of stuff, it's just,
Absolutely
I
not.
can't believe it still goes on in this world, but it does. And it's just part of the culture of music, and particularly piano, because it's left over from what was, the hierarchy of feudal lords, and the rich and the haves had all the pianos and the nice instruments, and it took a long time for the common folks to get up to learn how to play a piano, let alone own one.
The only thing that I cannot accept in the student or the piano world is favorism. That is low and absolutely unacceptable.
Yeah, especially at the competition
level. I
level.
don't care whose student that is. I wouldn't even want to know who that student is, as long as I hear quality there.
Right.
And somebody telling me, oh, it was a bad day for them. Well, it was a good day for somebody.
Somebody else
Sorry.
has a bad day, yeah.
It's the moment. We depend on the timing. Tomorrow I might fail completely.
There's no second chances at the Olympics.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
You deal with that second on the keyboard, and most of the time you're not perfect. But as long as you are put well together and hold your ground without showing your disappointment, aggression, or weaknesses, you have my respect.
Well, it is all about the presentation of music. And, it is all about trying to get the musicians to at least feel good about themselves and move forward, whether they win or not. And the problem is that there are a lot of egos besides the students and the musicians at stake.
Let's
In the
not
ego
even get
world,
there.
I'm not going to go there because I wanted to circle back around and say that, again, it's always about the music and the performance. And we are thrilled and excited to have you here just in San Antonio and at Maxa School, let alone here at Alamo Music Center, and giving us your recital concert performance. And I'm really looking forward to it because there's a wonderful collection of music that you put together. And I kind of had a little, preempted listening to some of the rehearsals here and there, but we're thrilled to have you here. We're looking forward to your concert tomorrow night. And we look forward to doing this again in the future with you. And also, remind you right here, you're going to have a good quality video and audio recording, and you'll be able to talk about the world and you and piano.
Extremely thankful. I mean it. And what Alamo Music does for this city is incredible, priceless. And I don't think the city will thrive as much without Alamo Music. Musical education is a lot that creates not only imagination, it it built a life. Music built a life. And Alamo Music Center really helps with this because, as I said, an instrument is an important thing. Any instrument. any instrument develops the brain in a completely different manner than no instrument.
Right.
And we're really thankful to have you here too.
Oh, we're grateful to have you here, and we'll look forward to it. Thank you so much for your time. Antonia Daskalova will be here, has been here, and will be here tomorrow night on her recital. And concert video footage will be coming out in the future. We thank you so much for your time and your energy and for listening. And look forward to seeing you here on our YouTube channel. In the future, we'll have more events like this. Thank you so much. We'll see you around.